Hey, Observant listeners, it's time to continue watching Jorge and Anfisa. Let's watch.
Okay, cool. So what's going on?
Last night, me and George argued, and I got a little mad, and I kicked him out of our apartment.
So she smiles when she's saying that. Does that mean she thinks it's actually funny, or is it a nervous reaction, or it's a cultural thing that I'm not reading quite right? If you're Russian, what do you think about that? I don't know, but she says that they got in a fight last night, and she got a little mad, and she kicked him out of the apartment, and she smiles while let's watch that again.
Argued, and I got a little mad, and I kicked him out of our apartment. I don't really remember what the fight was about, but it was some small thing, but...
Okay, so she says, I don't remember what the fight was about. It was some small thing. Okay, so if you kick someone out of your place, or is it his place? It must be his place, right? You'd think you would remember, but sometimes it starts with something that's really quite strange or small, and it grows because of the way that we talk about things. So maybe it was one of those situations.
I think it's just I had this anger in me, and it just was the last straw.
Okay, anger in her sounds like she's saying it was building over time, and this was the last straw. You know, we're not there behind the scenes, so maybe there's a legit reason why she had building anger. We could imagine, maybe, but we certainly haven't seen, to my knowledge, a reason for that, or at least I haven't. But like I said, I know that we only see maybe 1% of their relationship.
Hello?
Hello? Where are you at?
Okay, so we talk about on this channel conflict resolution, and one of the things that we will always do at some point in a conflict cycle is that we will reconcile. And oftentimes people are like, well, I'm not going to reconcile. I'm not going to be the first one to make the move. They have to make the first move. And what I'll say to that, and what I say to my couples is, well, you can live by that childish, undifferentiated principle, or you could be happy. So, when we're on our deathbed, it's unlikely that we're going to say, you know what, I never gave in on a fight and I always made them start the reconciliation. You're probably not going to take pride in that. So there's bigger things to worry about in life, and I understand, you would like the other person to reconcile, to start the ball rolling, or you just have to do what you got to do. Okay, so he initiated, he called, and she kicked him out. But, maybe he did something terrible, and we'll find out. But he called, and then she says, where are you at? All right, so if I were in her shoes, I would not have said that. I would have said, oh, thanks for initiating, let's talk. So let's see what he says to that.
Why?
Okay, he says, why? I think that's a passive way of asking for, do you love me? That's usually what I'll discover when I see that kind of pattern in a relationship, where it's like, because she says, where are you at? And he says, why? I think he's like, do you care about me? Hoping that she'll say, well, I want to know where you're at because I've been worried about you. That's a way of fishing for that. And of course, it's a great opportunity for her to say a loving thing like that. Let's see what she says.
Because you just left me alone here, alone in a foreign country.
Really? Are you kidding me?
Wait, what? I don't know why I expect anything else. So she says, you left me alone here in a foreign country. And then I'm like, at first I'm like, well, okay, maybe she didn't kick him, but she just said she kicked him out. And then he says, you kicked me out. I mean, if it were sneakier, I would say it was manipulative, but given the way that she's now. Okay, so another possibility, there's a thing called IQ. We all understand this, and we understand there's a bell curve, and at the middle of the bell curve is generally about 100, and you have standard deviations out to 85 and 115, and about 68%, 69% of people are between that range. That's the normal range. And if someone has an 85 IQ, then there will be marked differences in their scores on an IQ test as opposed to 115. But all those people are considered to be within normal range. What does that mean exactly? It just means that, about 70% of people are in that range. We understand that there's another 30% of people that are outside of that range. You have 15% that are below 85 and about 15% that are above 115. And for those people that are, and it's a sizable amount of people, it's like, 1 in 8 people-ish or something are below, or 1 in 7, what's it, 70, 1 in 7 people are below 85. And it's a lot of people, millions and millions and millions of people. I guess you would say perhaps 1 billion people on the planet are theoretically below 85. And below 85, there's some marked differences between their ability to reason, their ability to keep things straight in their mind, their ability to recall things quickly, their ability to process what's happening, which can absolutely affect one's ability to navigate a romantic relationship. Not always. I'm not saying people with an 80 IQ are doomed in a relationship. By no means is that true. We're much more likely to be affected by our traumas growing up. But it can be a factor. People with lower IQ, or higher IQ for that matter, their intelligence can play a role in their ability to think straight in a situation. For example, just proper logic, A equals B, which equals C, meaning A and C are equal. And the ability to hold all that in your head while you're having a tense conversation. For example, I kicked him out. I just said that, but I want to criticize. I do feel bad that he left here, but wait, I kicked him out. That's what intelligence would give you potentially the ability to do. A lower intelligence, you might actually kind of even forget that that's what happened. You're just going off of the way things feel, and or you're just motivated because you just want to criticize because you're in a fight. And so, people were saying this, and I would, loosely hypothesize that Danielle actually had a similar issue. Of course, her issues weren't. If I was to put it on a percentile in terms of the factor, in my conceptualization, there's no way to measure this, but I would say that if she does have a lower IQ, which I don't know, and she did get a degree, but take it from me as a professor, you can get into school and graduate with a lower IQ. It might take you more effort. You might have to work harder, but having an 80 IQ doesn't mean that you can't get a degree. But anyway, for Danielle, if she did have a lower IQ, I would say that it was about 25% or lower in terms of the weight that it played in her problems. I think it had much more to do with other relational traumas that she's been through in her life. But anyway, so I don't know if that's a factor, but I just want to throw that out there because even if you hated him, George, and were totally fine with the life mission to extract, she's literally said this, extract as much money from a rich man as possible while offering up your body because you are a self-proclaimed beautiful person. Okay, that's a choice you're making. It's a free world. You're not, as long as you're honest, you're not harming anyone. There's plenty of couples where reportedly that's the arrangement. Someone is just like, she's not really into me, but she's beautiful and I got money, so it all works out. There's people that want that kind of lifestyle. And if George was even saying that earlier on while they were communicating, then apparently he did want that. And he was basically kind of saying that earlier. I can't imagine he really wants that. I can imagine him thinking, maybe that's my door into attachment security. But anyway, so, okay, fine, she has this lifestyle. But if you had that lifestyle, you think you would be able to navigate how to have this conversation in this moment, you know? Instead of saying, I can't believe you abandoned me. And he's like, but you kicked me out. And then, oh yeah, that's right. I did just say I kicked him out. Anyway, I don't know why I'm trying to figure this out, honestly. I should maybe it all makes sense in the future. There's a lot more episodes to watch.
You kicked me out. I spent the night in the garage.
So?
I didn't leave you.
So there's that callousness again and rolling of the eyes. So he says, you kicked me out and I slept in a garage. So it's just, I don't need to reiterate the labels for such behavior.
First you kicked me out of bed. Then you kicked me out of the couch. Like, what was I doing to you?
You pissed me off.
Okay, so this would really help me out, because if there's a legit reason, which I can imagine, then I can start to make sense of this. And he's saying, you kicked me out of the bed and I went to the couch, and then you kicked me off the couch and you kicked me out of, I assume it's his place. And he's saying, what did I even do to you? I don't even understand what I did to you. Okay, well, sometimes we're doing things to other people and we don't know or we don't want to acknowledge. And she says, okay, well, you made me angry. Okay, so let's hear, hopefully she'll say X, Y, and Z made me angry, and then we'll get some sense for what's going on. Now a word from our sponsor, Betterhelp. Use the link below or the promo code Kirk because that really helps us out. Let's talk about burnout. Signs of burnout include difficulty concentrating, no motivation, irritability. Are you working too much, not taking enough time for yourself? Often, burnout will just creep up on us, and before long, we've had months, if not years, of being worn thin, Well, that's where therapy comes in. I remember when I was getting burnt out in graduate school, having a therapist to talk to once a week was a lifesaver. And you often hear me saying that BetterHelp can be a really convenient option for getting therapy. Also, online therapy has been demonstrated by empirical research to be just as effective as in-person therapy. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can get matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's betterhelp.com/Kirk. Get the help you need. You deserve it.
I didn't want to be in the same apartment with you.
It is hard being with somebody that thrives on a conflict like that.
So what do you want me to do here? Like, what do you want me to do to fix the situation?
Nothing. I don't want nothing.
Wow. I don't know if I can watch this, honestly. Like, I don't know if have we had a couple. I guess Angela was kind of like this, but not this far down the road. I mean, we have to make up a story with no data to justify why they are in a relationship. When you see these relationships, Angela and Michael or Ed and Rose, there's data. They say, well, at least something to grab onto. Like when Rose came over from, the Philippines, and there was that first scene, Ed actually went out to the Philippines and they're in a hotel room and he's like, Halik me or whatever. And at first you're like, I don't think she likes him. She's, she's not comfortable looking. But then, pretty quickly she started to say things that, at least kind of indicated that she liked him or was open to liking him or something. We are seeing zero. We're seeing negative, whatever on the scale. It's negative. It's a negative integer in terms of her love for him or even like of him. We're not seeing any indication. And without that, I'm just watching someone that hates another person with, absolute contempt, and the other person is refusing to acknowledge it because they're on a reality TV show and we have to watch it. I mean, I hesitate to say this because I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you to watch this episode. So I'm asking you to watch me watch this, yeah, I don't know what word to put to it. Let's actually look at a thesaurus. Adjectives. Groundless, that's a good word. Groundless relationship. There's no foundation. Unfounded, unsubstantiated, baseless, unwarranted, unsupported, unreasonable, foundationless, uncorroborated, unproven, unjustified, spurious. That's great. Spurious, ill-founded. Thesauruses are great, right? Yeah. Unfounded, groundless, unsubstantiated relationship. Yeah. You know, because if she has contempt towards him from this point forward, then, and you can't feel bad for him because she's laying it all out there. She said she's only into you because of money, and you apparently aren't as rich as you claimed you were earlier, so she hates you and she wants to leave. So why are you even in this? And he's like, well, how can I fix it? And then she says, you know, you can't, essentially. Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm being triggered is I've had couples and individuals that had her behavior before, not anything like in terms of this presentation, but that just this rigidity, and there's nothing to grab onto. And maybe that's why it's frustrating me, because I'm reminded, it's been years since I've had a client like that, but where there's just nothing to grab onto. There's nothing, there's no motivation. You know, they're asking me to help them, and I'm like, okay, you know, and then I start to try to get into something, and there's nothing there. Now, of course, I know better than to conclude that. I think, well, maybe they're just defensive, or they're hiding something, or they don't want to be vulnerable. It takes a little bit more time. But sometimes actually, in the end, there is nothing there. And of course, we can imagine this, that, and I tell my trainees this sometimes, because sometimes it doesn't really compute to a therapist, that a client could actually come to therapy and not actually want therapy. They might actually drive to an appointment and make an appointment, but they don't actually want to change, and they're not convincible to change. And so, you know, just because a client's in your office doesn't mean that they actually want to do work. And so when you're bumping up against things, sometimes you have to question, like, well, wait, do they want something? So you would ask. And so if I were, well, he has asked. He's like, do you want to be in this relationship? She's like, no. So I don't know. But they don't break up, right? Because we got more episodes.
You can't fix it. You can't fix stupid.
Wow.
I think it.
So he's saying, what can I do to fix it? What can I do to fix it? She says, you can't fix stupid. I was hoping we were going to get some answer like, well, you could fix it by apologizing for this and this and this, or you can fix it by changing this about you or something. But she's like, you can't fix it. Okay. I'm probably just going to stop reacting, honestly, until something else that is less unsubstantiated, less foundationless comes up, because I'm just watching someone that hates someone and another person who refuses to hear it.
Doesn't really realize that it's hard to be in a foreign country where I don't know anybody except him. Are you coming or what?
Okay, there's a little bit of warmth indication there, like again, drifting normalcy. You know, at least she's saying she needs him or wants him to do something, which is to make her feel comfortable in a foreign country. Okay, you know what? We can go with that. What did he do to make you not feel comfortable? And then she's like, are you coming home or what? Okay, I mean, it's not the most mature way to communicate, but it's, if you read between the lines, you could interpret that as, I want you to come home.
Yes.
I don't need your stuff in my apartment. I'm gonna throw it all from the window.
Wait, what? Are you, what is happening? So she says, I'm in a foreign country, and I I gave up a lot of stuff to be here. I don't know what's happening. Okay. And then she says, are you coming home or what? And then she says, I don't need your stuff. I'm going to throw it out the window. I don't even understand how those things are related. I understand what each of those sentences mean, and I hear the communication from her, but how did those things, when are you coming? And so there are relational traumas that can lead people to be this way, where they will push-pull in this way. They will say, I can't believe you abandoned me. Get away from me. Now, of course, this is sometimes a tagline for borderline. There are other conditions that are similar with a similar behavior. Of course, not everyone with borderline does this sort of thing. Of course, that's not true. Plenty of people with borderline have insight, or they internalize their anger, or they've recovered enough, or they're lower degree, so they would be able to say, well, that's not fair. But is that what we're seeing? I mean, she just indicated that black and white, that idealization and the devaluation, as like, get away from me, I can't stand you. How come you left me? All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.